corporations at a time when you actually check the government data about the borrowing of our country, and I'm bringing in borrowing because it is also attached, because most of the implementation of government is done by SAGAs, is that the first 2 months of this financial year, Honorable Speaker, you can imagine, the country spent 386 billion shillings to service debt. And within that 2 months, the country only received 329 billion in tax revenue. What does that mean? We actually spent 117% of our collections in servicing debt. It means we spent all the money we collected in servicing debt, but borrowed even more to service debt. And it is a grim situation. It is grim because much of the money that is borrowed by the state also is implemented in terms of projects through the kind of sagas that we are debating their reports today. But going specific, Honorable Speaker, to this debate, I want just to highlight on two sagas or two corporations. One is the Child Welfare Society of Kenya. And Honorable Speaker, if you check the audits we are debating today, some actually date back to 8 years ago. We are debating here a report of 2016. And we are in 20, as you put it, Honorable Speaker, it's actually 10 years. And I wonder then, what kind of utility can we give to the expenditure of public resources when we are debating the audit for 10 years ago? Definitely a lot has happened. There is a lot of dynamic situations that have been witnessed, including change of personnel and the rest. But I hope we are going to improve, and especially in terms of the audit committees. Honorable Speaker, on child welfare, I have been interacting with them in my previous station, and I want to say that some of these sagas actually do a lot of work when it comes to granting social service to our country. And there has been a lot of back and forth in terms of the anchoring of the Child Welfare Society of Kenya, whether as a government saga or whichever. There has been a lot of back and forth. But primarily the kind of work they do is public. And I say so because there has been a lot of confusion when it comes to funding the Child Welfare Society of Kenya, because some of the people in the National Treasury don't want to assign them their rightful role as a government parastatal, which they are, Honorable Speaker, based on what they do. But also we have seen the kind of service they render to the public of Kenya needs money continually. Is this not a saga where you need to fund money this year, the next year you need to decide whether to fund? Because the kind of things they do is, for example, paying school fees for vulnerable children, feeding some of these rescued children. You cannot fund them this year, and then there is, next year, somebody is gravitating towards whether to fund or not. In fact, Honorable Speaker, some of these sagas, their funding should actually come from CFS. From CFS, so that even before we are paid our salaries, some of these very critical and important bodies should actually be funded even before. At the category where we fund the service of debt, that is where they need to be funded. The critical point I had is this one, Honorable Speaker, on NSSF. Honorable Speaker, and I want to request the committee to even go further than what they have done. Because as the people's representatives, our audit should not just be about figures. It should also be about results and intentions. The foundation of NSSF is to safeguard workers' money. Workers' money, when it comes to their contribution, they are the ones to take up the contributions, but also to do the payouts at the due time. Honorable Speaker, you cannot repay money when you have it. There is nothing, you cannot pay money on credit. You can only pay it to pensioners when you have it. And that is why the mandate of NSSF primarily is to make sure that they are investing the monies they are collecting. One is to beat inflation. But also number two is to make sure that the purse is growing, not shrinking. so that when the time to pay up comes, you cannot pay up money through stories. You cannot only pay up money through money. I say so, Honorable Speaker, because we need to be very forthright when it comes to the critical roles of NSSF. The work of NSSF is to collect money, invest. One of the areas they need to do is that, and to always have in mind, is that they need to have a commercial mind in all the endeavors they make in terms of investments. And in doing so, NSSF money, because these are contributions by Kenyans, even in those investments, should go towards investments that are also helping Kenyans, even as they work, even as before they wait for retirement. So that you actually beat two birds with one stone. You are serving them now with their money, but also the money is growing so that when they need the money is actually available. Honorable Speaker, that calls for diversity. NSSF, you look primarily in Kenya, they focus on T-bills, they focus on treasury boards, they focus on the market, the equities market. And they are predominant when it comes to purchases of shares in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. But Honorable Speaker, they need to broaden further. As a catalyst of an economy, if you look at, for example, the capital markets in the US, there are critical funds I keep mentioning here, for example, private equity funds, venture capital funds. And NSSF is at a very vantage point, Honorable Speaker, to be able to even establish those kind of funds. So that beyond investing in the secondary market, they should also invest in the primary market, in the series funding of companies, so that at the same time as they are growing the past, they are also helping in incubating SMEs and helping them thrive. But of course, that can only happen when there is a lot of professionalism instilled when it comes to management of the funds at the NSSF. Honorable Speaker, and I bet that the chair is listening.
I think he's very
Keen.
Very attentive, extremely keen.
I have been somewhat disappointed of late by the way in which we are deploying the resources when it comes to NSSF. Honorable Speaker, the guideline, the only guiding tool when it comes to investments is beyond stimulating the economy, but making sure that when you put in a shilling, it comes back as more. Because that is the basis of investments. But, Honorable Speaker, we cannot afford to put NSSF money on a gradius of implementation, of experimentation. Honorable Speaker, even when you are experimenting, you don't hedge your entire pass. You use just a fraction. We have seen a lot of experimentation nowadays when it comes to NSSF on different terms. One term, for example, we saw the other day the government of Kenya was trying to raise money on hedging the money that goes to sports fund through a board called Talanta Fund. Honorable Speaker, the truth of the matter is that this board was actually taken to the Nairobi Securities Exchange on the secondary market, but the investors of that board is still public money. NSSF was the number 2 investor in the Talanta board. Honorable Speaker, this is 45 billion Kenya shillings, which was shunned by all the other private enterprises, including banks. Private banks in the private arena never invested in Talanta board, but NSSF money found its way there, around 10 billion shillings. I don't think that was prudent. Number 2, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of PPPs. It is important for Kenyans to know the expansion of Nairobi to Nakuru Highway is not being funded by the kind of debt that I mentioned, which is growing astronomically. It is through a PPP, but PPP is just a name. We are actually spending NSSF money in building the road. And then we are telling NSSF that they put toll stations, they recover their investment through tolling. One, it is wrong to toll Nairobi-Nakuru Highway. It is wrong economically to toll it because it is not economically viable to toll it. But number 2 also, it is not commercially viable for workers' money to do the work that the government should be doing.
Badi.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii ili na kuchangia katika hii kamati ya ripoti ya kamati ya uhasibu. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la kwanza